Part 68. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 674. Okay, we are all our own people, so we won't be secretive. I, Emperor Lessard, also have my own intelligence channels. I have probably heard a little about your research. Rhodes spoke openly. The mask is buried under the root of that thing. You sent someone to take it out. In exchange, any conditions you want are negotiable. The smile on Alan Hill's face gradually faded. To be honest, I really didn't find any masks there. This is true. In addition, there is a mask buried at the foot of the tree. Where did this rumor come from? The credibility of this rumor is very questionable. Rhodes, we are all old friends, and you know I always tell my friends that I will definitely help them if I can. But I really can't do anything about this. The atmosphere in the hall suddenly became tense. Rhodes smiled quickly and eased the atmosphere. Since you, Alan, said no, then I believe you. Maybe the rumor is wrong. That's right, Alan smiled again. I'll take you to visit my latest processing line later. It's absolutely world class. You can get the goods from me if you need them, and I'll give you the cost price. All of us are. The only purpose of my coming here this time is the mask. A deep voice suddenly broke into the conversation between the two of them. It's Galleons. He suddenly spoke. He, who had been silent from beginning to end, suddenly interrupted Alan Hill, and slowly stared at Alan Hill with one masked eye. The smile on Alan's face suddenly froze, and Rhodes' smile suddenly became awkward. I said, I don't have a mask here, friend. Where did you hear that rumor? Alan frowned, staring at Garen, who was speaking. It was as if he was trying to see through the mask to see his face underneath. It doesn't matter where you heard it from. What's important is that if you give me the mask, I can owe you a promise, Garen whispered. His voice was deep and powerful, giving people a decisive and strong feeling. I told you I don't have a mask here. You can't understand human speech, right? Alan Hill's face turned cold as soon as he said the word, and he changed his face at every turn. Calm down. Rhodes stood up quickly to comfort both of them. We are all friends, there is no need to be so stiff. For the sake of Rhodes, I'll give you another chance. Garen's eyes also turned cold. Hand over the mask. Otherwise, what about? Alan Hill stood up and took off his shirt, revealing his explosive muscles. He pushed Rhodes away. How dare someone threaten me in my territory? For my sake, calm down, Rhodes finally shouted. We are all friends. Is there anything we can't sit down and talk about? Alan Hill sneered. Ignoring Rhodes' cry, he walked directly to Garen and pointed at Garen's nose. For Rhodes' sake, you. Now. Get out of here. I can treat the previous unpleasantness as nothing happened. Garen stood up. His height was directly equal to that of Alan Hill, and their eyes immediately met. Bang. Suddenly there was a muffled thunder-like sound. Alan Hill in front of Garen flew out like a cannonball, hitting the wall of the villa on the left, and was embedded in the wall with a bang, and the whole person opened in a large shape. Ah! Amid the maid's screams, Rhodes was too stunned to react. Just when he was about to step forward to stop him, he saw Garen raising his right arm like lightning and giving him a fierce swipe. The entire right arm hit the side of Alan Hill's body like a war hammer. The sound wave that erupted at that moment almost made his whole body numb, and his eardrums are still buzzing to this day. Well. Aaron Hill groaned, shook his head, and walked down the wall. He was not injured at all. But as soon as he stood firm, Garen, who walked up again, grabbed his head with one hand and hit the wall hard. Bang! There was a complete hole in the wall of the villa, exposed to the bright light outside. Kill him, Alan Hill shouted loudly and hesitantly. He tried hard to break free from Garen, but it was of no avail. His modified power was actually no match for Garen. Kill him. Sulanjing, he shouted. However, Garen grabbed him directly from the wall and lifted him up in the air. Boom! A small gunshot. Garen turned around suddenly, and a black nail and bullet was suddenly stuck on the arm he was holding Alan Hill. There seemed to be a red light flashing on the bullet. Suddenly a burst of fire exploded, and the black nails exploded. Amid the violent vibrations, Garen did not move at all, holding Alan Hill and looking towards the direction of the bullet. The micro bomb on the bullet exploded, but it had no effect on him. Although Rhodes had already seen the terrifying side of Garen when he was in White Phoenix, seeing it again now, he still felt incredibly shocked. At this moment, Alan Hill's whole body suddenly squeaked, and like a slippery loach, it strangely slipped out of Garen's hand and landed lightly on the floor on the other side. As soon as he stood still, he stared at Garen with a sinister expression. Opening his right arm, his right hand shed a layer of skin strangely, turning into an octopus-like black tentacle. The tentacle was several meters long, and it whipped Garen hard and flexibly like a whip. The mucus on some octopus tentacles spilled on the ground, and white smoke suddenly appeared, and a foul corrosive smell filled the air. Snapped! Garen grabbed the tentacle with one hand, pulled it hard, and actually lifted Alan up like a heavy object and slammed it on the ground. Boom! The floor was directly smashed through, and a big crater was made in the cement below, with gravel flying. Spare your life! Spare your life! Alan Hill's unclear voice finally sounded. A large amount of red and white slime was smashed out, and some of it spattered directly onto the wall, corroding holes of varying sizes. Garen stopped and threw aside the rag-like monster Alan Hill. This guy used some kind of biological technology to make himself neither human nor ghost, but his actual strength is only about 2 points on average, which is close to a ton of strength, but the terrifying corrosive slime on his body is very powerful. Garen's 7-point physique grabbed the tentacle, and at this time he felt his palms burning, as if there were many tiny insects burrowing into his skin, which was very uncomfortable. He shook off the slime on his hands and saw that the door of the villa was knocked open, a pile of firearms were facing him, and the red dots of sniper rifles were densely aimed at him. Think carefully. I'm not interested in your research. Give me the mask. For Rhodes' sake, I don't have to worry about it this time. Garen looked at Alan Hill, who was half kneeling on the ground. He controlled it very well, and the slime did not splash to anyone around him, but the surrounding furniture and sofas were damaged. Cough, cough, cough. Alan Hill coughed violently, his eyes were red and bloodshot, and a large piece of his scalp was torn off by a ferocious blow, revealing the white surface of his skull. White mucus was secreted continuously from the side of the mouth, which seemed to be another more corrosive liquid. That's it for today. Garen didn't bother to search for the mask himself and turned to look at Rhodes. The latter had a helpless smile on his face. He originally planned a peaceful transaction, and tried his best to communicate with Garen before coming, hoping that he would be fully responsible. He didn't expect the situation to turn into this. Let's go. Garen clapped his hands, his body still spotless, as if he hadn't touched his hands at all just now, and he was still wearing a black suit without a trace of color. On the other hand, Alan Hill's white pants were in tatters and full of stains. The two of them walked towards the gate one after the other. At some point, a black woman appeared next to Rhodes. She glanced at Galen with a solemn expression, then looked at Alan on the ground, and followed Rhodes without saying a word. A group of gunmen at the door were aiming nervously at the 3 gallons. Some were so nervous that their throats were throbbing and their fingers were so stiff that they could not help but tremble. Aaron Hill, who was on the ground, quietly opened his mouth and faced Garen's back. A frog-like green and black curling tongue came out of his mouth, and a sinister look flashed in his eyes. Laugh. A tiny crisp sound shot through the air towards Garen's vest. Roar. Garen turned back suddenly, his body flashed with dragon shadow, and a circle of air waves suddenly exploded around him. A sound wave like the roar of a giant beast violently shook the green and black tongue behind him back, and slammed into the wall. On an oil painting. Garen snorted coldly, glanced at Alan Hill on the ground, and strode out of the door, followed closely by Rhodes and others. The gunman at the door had already been shocked to the ground by the huge roar, and his whole body was stiff and unable to move. Looking at the backs of Garen and others, Alan Hill tried his best to support his body and wanted to stand up, but his legs kept shaking and refused to obey his orders. He tried hard to suppress the fear in his heart, but the last terrifying roar and dragon roar always replayed in his mind. Damn it, he hammered the ground hard, then fell to the ground slumped. At this time, two people also walked down from the second floor of the villa. One was Mora and the other was a woman. Both of them were dressed in white and looked extremely ugly. My special bullets can't even penetrate his skin. The woman looked to be in her 30s, with an ordinary face and yellowish skin. She was obviously of Oriental ethnicity. I admit defeat this time, Alan Hill said harshly. King of Nighthawks, he suppressed the fear in his heart, but he didn't realize that his voice was actually trembling. Is it just like giving it to him for nothing? The mask has been completely entangled with the roots of the tree, and there is no way to take it out without injury. Mora walked over to help Alan up, looking unwilling. Give it to him. Don't get entangled with him in the future, he is a lunatic. Alan Hill didn't know that the shadow of Garen's invincibility was deeply imprinted in his heart. The man's power was like an inflated balloon, which was constantly being blown away. He deepened it. The more he thought about it, the more afraid he became, and the more he thought about it, the less willing he was to touch it. Unknowingly, a seed of awe had been planted in his heart by Garen. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 675. On the way back to the car, the sound of the car engine kept coming from the window. The sunroof above the car was opened, blowing in a stream of cool breeze. Galen sat in the back row with Rhodes. Neither of them had bodyguards. Rhodes knew that being with Galen was actually the safest. Actually, there is no need to be so stiff. If I explain it carefully, maybe he will agree, Rhodes said with a wry smile. Garen glanced at her and smiled. I represent Nighthawk and the Fighting Club, but it's more about personal force, and you represent Emperor Lashad. We have the upper hand in terms of personal strength and background. How dare he resist? He doesn't even dare to fall out. After all, he is my former good friend, Rhodes sighed. This time, he saw Garen's terrifying ghost-like power up close. As an ordinary person, as a man, he actually has some expectations and hopes for this extremely powerful power. By the way, Garen, you heard that the second round of recruiting disciples is about to begin. I wonder if you can count me in. He looked at Garen expectantly. I wonder if I can practice your martial arts. Of course, Garen smiled easily. I created two major schools, biphasic water bird boxing and shadowing secret martial arts. You can choose which one. Didn't I give you a copy of the information? I've been studying that information for most of the night, but I feel nothing at all. Rhodes lowered his head in embarrassment. I still feel half understood in many places. It just so happens that you can come along for this training camp. The two major schools I created require my personal guidance before you can get started. They cannot be practiced casually, Garen nodded. After knowing this guy for the past few days, he had a rough idea of Rhodes. This guy has absolutely no rationality. He just looks at his feelings and goes by his feelings. As a decision maker, this will often lead to wrong decisions and cause losses and consequences in his eyes. In addition, Rhodes does not have a big city, and to put it harshly, he has no ambitions and unclear goals. He often changes his decisions on impulse, and it is impossible to achieve great achievements. But he also has a good thing, that is, he is very sincere to others, not so pretentious, and treats others with sincerity. This is also the key to Garen's willingness to accept him. As a friend, no one likes a guy who plays tricks on him all day long and plots against each other. That's great. Don't worry. I'm not good at anything else, but I still have confidence in my perseverance, Rode assured, patting his chest. Hopefully Garen shook his head. What's that look in your eyes? Rode said unwillingly. On the slope of the valley, Cohen and Cole looked at each other in disbelief, looking at the retreating convoy below and the posture of the Halo base as if facing a formidable enemy. There is a feeling of miscalculation in my heart. Is it possible that Halo is scared? Cohen couldn't help but said. Cole smiled bitterly. I'm afraid it's not because you're scared, but because you're afraid of being beaten. Didn't you hear the noise just now? That guy is a master who dares to take action even if he disagrees with you. Cohen nodded. What should we do now? We won't destroy the research on the man-eating tree. It's not that simple, don't worry. Cole shook his head. The mask and the man-eating tree have grown into one, and I initially suspect that the man-eating tree is basically based on the mask. To separate the mask, the man-eating tree will be affected. The impact is almost fatal. Alan Hill will not give in so easily, this will simply cost him his life. Does that mean they will fight sooner or later? Definitely. Cole nodded affirmatively. I'm afraid that Halo themselves haven't discovered this fact. Once they find out, they may really break the deadlock with Nighthawk Fish. I think this news should be passed on to Nighthawk immediately. Cohen took a deep breath. It's not necessary. Cole shook his head. It's best to let the Nighthawk King suffer a little loss. Only when both sides see blood can the conflict escalate and we have a chance, she said with a gloomy look. Cohen knew that she was thinking about her brother who was killed by the Halo again, so he put his arms around her and hugged her gently. Just do as you say, and we'll just wait and see what happens. Night. Garen sat quietly in the secret room. The room had been cleaned, and all the blood clots and stains inside had been removed by a special mute maid. His eyes were closed tightly, and his whole body exuded a dark blue aura that could not be seen by mortals. This aura spread to every corner of the room, suppressing the black aura emanating from the wall at the end of the room. From ordinary people's cultivation to the current level, even with the help of innate abilities, he has overcome many life and death crises. It can be said that there is no luck to be able to reach this point. It can be seen that the nine-headed dragon King Nadia is the same, and has even experienced countless horrors than him. Garen's eyes were closed tightly, but he could still feel the aura of aura emanating from the coin in the wall in front of him. The aura was weak and tough, like water plants in the water, swaying with the flow, but not broken at all. Shattered signs. Even with the help of the mask to suppress it, the scent of the coin became stronger and stronger as Nadia got closer. Garen said in a low voice. He opened his eyes, stood up, walked slowly to the end of the room, reached out and pulled out a small secret compartment from the old place on the wall, and looked at the grimoire notebook and coins placed inside. In addition, the other 3 sleepless face masks were stacked together and covered on the coin. The strange force field became increasingly clear under the superposition of the 3 masks. Picking up the 2 newly acquired masks, Garen closed his eyes and quietly held a corner of the mask with his palms. 2 cool and huge streams of air quickly surged out of the mask, like floods bursting from a dam. In the attribute bar in the field of vision, the potential points shot up one by one, like rockets. I don't know how long it took for the potential breath in the mask to be completely transmitted. There were more than 100 potential points before, but after getting the 2 masks sent by Rhodes, the number suddenly increased to more than 300 points. Although only one mask had potential points, the other mask also actually increased his potential points. It has a potential value of more than 200. Putting down his mask, Garen glanced at his attribute bar. Galen Thomas. Power 7. Agile 7. Physique 7. Intelligence 7. Potential 36,248%. Soul limit 30. Soul seed, Northern Halberdiers Cold Flame True Water Evil Technique. Void Stalker, Level 1. The Cold Hell Peacock skill, the first level of entry, the basic level is 5 levels, the derivative level is 3 levels, and the full level is 8 levels. 7-star Secret Point, 4th level, the limit is 7 levels. Violin Mastery, 2nd, Mastery level. 3 levels in total. The core of his real practice has now become the Cold Hell Peacock technique and the 7-star Divination Secret Point. I don't know where to find the white malachite I need for the Cold Prison Peacock skill. There is no need to worry so much about the 7-star Secret Point. All that is needed is a strong enough life potential and a resilient physique. Garen thought for a moment, and reaching the 4th level of the 7-star life pointing secret point was his current limit. He would not be able to open the 5th star after that. Once it was opened, he might not be able to take action, and he would have to explode it first. The body dies. There is not only a problem with the secret method itself, but also its own limitations. The principle of the 7-star secret acupuncture point is to stimulate the body's acupuncture points in a short period of time and explode the stored potential at once. This is originally a kind of death-like technique, but for Garen, because of his extremely terrifying recovery power and physique, he can truly use it as a routine. All other secret methods are far inferior to this secret method, which can superimpose secret weapons and stimulate one's own strength. But this secret method also has limits. When Garen compiled this set of secret techniques, he summarized the 9 secret acupoints, the 7 bright acupoints, and the 2 hidden acupoints based on various information and his own exploration. These acupuncture points are increasing gradually, but they all have limits, which are the genetic limits of the body itself. Just like the genetic limit of an average human being is 460 kilograms of strength. He can originally have 100 kilograms of strength. Then using the 7-star life pointing secret point, he can increase it to a maximum of 460 kilograms. In the future, no matter how many levels of 7-star life pointing secret points he masters, no acupointment secret method can exceed this limit. Once it is exceeded, the genes will collapse instantly, and the entire body will be unable to withstand the terrifying internal pressure and the blood vessels will burst. The 7-star secret point of life can be said to be the master of Garen's martial arts. This terrifying secret method can seal and converge all the dissipated energy of the human body, forming a strong internal pressure, so as to release this internal pressure to achieve the goal in a short time. The purpose of improving one's own physical fitness. Like an inflated balloon, puncture a hole and allow it to slowly release the pressurized air. Each layer of advancement punctures one more hole, speeding up the flow of potential in the body, and obtaining a terrifying increase in physical fitness in a short period of time. But the premise is that it is impossible to exceed the total amount of storage potential of the body itself, which is the so-called genetic limit. And if it is released once without replenishment, there will be no second time. Therefore, for others, this secret method is simply the last secret method that will lead to death together. And Garen did get inspiration from those martial arts secrets that perished together, and finally compiled it into a set of terrifying secrets that can be called peerless magic skills. Now the potential is more than 300. It is best to give priority to the 7-star secret points and improve the physical fitness and strength first. In this way, the basic raw quality is high, and you only need to open the 2nd or 3rd star to reach 3 with a genetic limit of 10 points. You don't have to bear additional consequences in the future. Otherwise, once the 4th star is activated, even if you win in the end, it will only be a miserable victory. If the activation time is up and the opponent is not defeated, you will be weakened directly, and you may be defeated by the opponent. Defeat. As your physique improves, the number of stars that can be activated will also increase. Although it cannot exceed the limit of 30 points, it can be maintained for a longer period of time. Garen was thinking, and his eyes first focused on the physique. The physique has been used to heal injuries, and some potential points have been added intermittently. It is only a little bit closer to raising it to 8 points. This kind of subtle data attribute column is not displayed anymore. The changes in the ability are completely in line with Garen's own. It will be displayed when it needs to be displayed, and now the span is directly from a few o'clock to a dozen o'clock, to dozens of o'clock. Under this span, naturally too detailed data will not be displayed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 676. After the attribute exceeds 5 points, each point of improvement requires 20 potential points, which is now 7 points. Garen's eyes focused on the physical fitness column. Suddenly, the potential point went directly to 8 points, from 362 to 354, and the physical constitution also suddenly changed from 7 points to 8 points. Garen continued to stare at the physical fitness item. After the attribute exceeds 8 points, there is another qualitative change. The potential points required to improve one attribute are 60 points. At first, he relied on the horrific massacre in the totem world to continue to improve greatly, but now he has broken through this level for the second time. Look, arriving at the potential point, which was descending rapidly like a waterfall, Garen's heart still ached. Suddenly, the potential points dropped from 354 to 294, and the physical constitution also changed from 8 points to 9 points. After a little feeling of my own condition, it should be no problem to activate the 4th star. I have improved my physical fitness by 2 points in a row, and my body's endurance has been greatly improved. Originally, I could only last for more than 10 minutes when I activated the 4th star. Now half an hour is no problem. Even turning on the 5th star meets the conditions. With his current attributes, once the 5th star is turned on, it is equivalent to directly reaching the upper limit of 30 points of the gene limit, which is the same as what Nadia showed last time. The strength is about the same. The 5th star has reached the limit of its own genes. Garen pondered for a moment, and suddenly moved his right hand to his chest. Bang bang bang. There were several crisp sounds in succession, and in the shadow of countless fingers, his body suddenly swelled up step by step. The skin all over his body quickly turned black, and the veins were like thin black snakes, snaking all over his body, even his face. The already strong muscles all over his body were exaggerated to a terrifying level. This is the 4th star state. It's much easier. Garen moved his body and found that there was no discomfort. Continue. His hands and fingers once again turned into countless afterimages at a strange frequency, and he quickly tapped dozens of times on the bear's belly and shoulders. 5th star. Drink. Boom. There was a muffled sound, and he could no longer restrain his violent spirit. A substantial wave of air burst out from his pores, making the entire secret room tremble, as if a strong wind was roaring, and it actually caused bursts of whining. Voice. A horrific scene occurred. The muscles on Garen's shoulders became more condensed and arched out. After pulling apart, 2 huge muscle hooks formed on the shoulders, like 2 extra elbows, protruding from the front of the body to both sides, as if they were wearing 2 thick shoulder armors. The slightly black muscles covered with veins completely tore apart the shirt, and the pieces of the clothes fell into pieces and fell to the ground. He took a long breath and stretched out his right hand. The skin on his palm was glowing with a purple sheen, and the earthworm-like veins on the surface were beating slightly like tree branches. The entire palm was already as big as his average head. He could feel that he was now 3 meters tall, and his whole body was swollen to the point of not being human. This is the 5th star. My strongest limit. Garen let out a fierce breath. At this moment, with just a little exertion of his muscles, he can bulge up huge muscles that are as terrifying as a sarcoma and the size of a human head. His heartbeat, which is as strong as a drum, can be heard throughout the secret room. His breathing is already continuous, and the oxygen is no longer available. While the exhaust gas is constantly flowing into the lungs, it must also be continuously discharged out. Taking a step back, my elbow accidentally touched the wall next to me. With a sneer, he gently rubbed sparks out of the hard alloy wall, and a clear dent appeared on the surface. This level is already more terrifying than in the world of secret martial arts, and it is infinitely stronger. It can only last 5 minutes. He breathed a sigh of relief, his energy and blood circulation gradually slowed down, and his body quickly contracted and recovered. This secret technique of yours hurts yourself first and then others. Hessas gave a fair evaluation. I saw a lot of shadows of secret techniques like self-immolation by fire and the death of demons. Garen did not reply, but continued to look at the physical fitness item. 5 minutes of physical extreme state is not a safe category for him. Such a short time may not be able to defeat Nadia and ensure his own survival. With a cruel heart, he stared at the physique again. The physique that had already reached 9 o'clock suddenly started to beat again, and suddenly, it entered 10 o'clock. The potential points disappeared in a flash of 60 points, and the remaining potential points jumped directly from 294 to 234. In this way, as long as the physique reaches the standard and can hold up, turning on the 5th star state can be equivalent to directly increasing all attributes to the genetic limit of 30 points. Compared with the average increase in attribute points, it takes more time to increase strength in a short period of time. Much better value. Garen mentally calculated the consumption and improvement, and felt satisfied. Your secret method can allow you to reach the genetic limit in a short period of time. It may be able to cope with Nadia's subsequent attacks. However, if her coordinate aura is not completely sealed for one day, his projection will become stronger day by day. Nadia's limits are not just the powers you last came into contact with. Hessas reminded, Legion-level strength is beyond your imagination. I know, Garen responded. The 7-star vitality secret point is enough for the moment. It is impossible to increase the genetic limit in a short period of time. We need to find other methods. This secret method of yours can only be used by you. When you open it to the 3rd star or above, you must consume your body's potential, which is your body's lifespan. I don't know how you replenish your body's potential, but this method is definitely not applicable. For others, practicing secret martial arts is the right path. No matter how strong an individual is, he cannot compete with the natural universe. Leveraging the universe on his own is the essence of Maiwa's true pursuit, rather than simply strengthening himself. You must understand that you are only temporary now. Before the words are finished, bang. Suddenly, there was a huge sound of metal colliding, and the wall of the secret room seemed to be broken by something, making a loud noise. Garen felt his ears become blurred, the space around him seemed to shake suddenly, and a white light suddenly lit up in front of his eyes. The light was so dazzling that he could not see anything in front of him clearly. A familiar aura quickly rushed from far ahead. Clang! There was a harsh metallic sound. The huge and terrifying sharp aura struck at the head fiercely. Die! Nadia! Galen didn't have time to think too much, he instantly tapped the acupuncture points with both hands and activated the 5th star. Drink! Terrifying air waves erupted in all directions, and he raised his hands up. In the white light, 2 terrifying forces collided. There was no sound, only violent vibrations that had exceeded the limit of hearing, vibrating in the space. The secret room was torn apart, and was shaken by the terrifying force and exploded into countless black fragments, revealing the pure white light environment outside. Garen pushed forward with both hands, but missed. Only then did his eyes slowly adjust to the surrounding environment. He seemed to be standing in a pure white space, with nothing around him. It was completely white. Above and below, front and back, left and right, everything was completely white. The black fragments from the previous secret room were no longer known where they fell. Nadia is dressed in black. She is dressed the same as last time. She has a short black skirt, long legs and black stockings. Her long hair is fluttering in the wind. She has the most perfect girl figure. Only the mask that is half sad and half smiling still makes people weird. We meet again. Nadia's deep male voice came from afar. The two stood dozens of meters apart, but there was no distance between them at all, and their voices were as clear as if they were spoken directly into their ears. You have indeed become stronger. Nadia looked at Garen carefully through the mask. Both of them were wearing masks, but Garen's mask had countless eyes densely packed on his forehead. At this time, in the dream, these eyes seemed to come alive, with small eyes constantly blinking, as if countless pairs of eyes were blinking, staring at Nadia opposite. But that was actually Garen's ice blue aura that was constantly escaping from the mask uncontrollably. The power of the fifth star, the ultimate power. Not only have I become stronger, but you have also become weaker. Garen reached out and gently touched his empty left eye. Boom. Almost at the same time, the two disappeared from their original places at the same time, turning into two black and white shadows. Their figures showed clear and straight lines in the white light. Bang! The fist and the blade collided together, and the high-speed cutting and vibrating blade struck the slightly black fist that was harder than diamond. Garen roared, held the blade with his left hand, and swung out his right fist violently, causing the muscle barb on his right shoulder to expand suddenly, as if the right side of his entire body was growing larger. Absolute power. Nothing can stop you. Garen's face was as iron as steel, and his right fist actually pulled out a terrifying flame in the air. It was the violent effect of high-speed friction in the air. The red fist was wrapped in countless flames and hit Nadia's head hard. The entire right fist was as big as Nadia's head. Swallow killing knife. Nadia also roared, and with one hand free, she actually pulled out a spiked short knife from the handle of the broadsword. The blade crackled with a light blue electric arc, and was blocked in front of Garen's fist. Clang! The terrifying power of the two people shook violently and turned into a clear and substantial shock wave. A circular ripple spread out with the two people as the center. The black dagger in Nadia's hand was constantly vibrating, and the extreme high-frequency vibrations between the two secret weapons were constantly fighting and rubbing against each other, emitting high-frequency ultrasonic waves that could not be heard by human ears. If it weren't for the fact that I could only use projection, Nadia felt that her power was being suppressed, and her eyes under the mask became extremely manic. Die! Garen pressed forward fiercely, the shock on his right fist instantly shook the blade, and punched him. Bang! Nadia's head was instantly blown open, and she turned into countless black shadows and flew away in a burst of extremely sharp screams. I will definitely come back. Nadia's last voice lingered in the air. The surrounding white light suddenly dimmed. Garen slowly opened his eyes. He still maintained his original posture, standing in front of the hidden compartment in the secret room. In front of him was the suppressed coin. The force fields of the four masks seemed to have a certain superimposed increase, forming a mysterious force that he could vaguely feel. Cover a small area around it. The black dragon-shaped aura entrenched on the coin could only be unwillingly restricted to an area the size of a fist and kept swimming. It seems a lot easier this time. Only then did Hessas realize that he had been attacked again. Of course Garen clenched his fist. The extreme power, the feeling of being so terrifying that it could destroy everything, made him still nostalgic for it even now. Absolute power, the strongest power. He felt his beating heartbeat, and suddenly felt an incomparable sense of fulfillment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 677. Legion level, how strong is it? Garen was still asking when he walked out of the secret room. Now that you have activated the fifth star, You are already close to the Legion level. Hesaz was silent for a while before giving the answer. Then why do you still need to practice peacock kung fu? Garen picked up a piece of clothing on the hanger at the door and put it on. I don't know when it became night outside. The moonlight shone through the window on his side, making it look silvery white. My wu is more than just strength, Hesaz whispered. That's just not strong enough, Garen interrupted. Hesaz didn't say anything anymore. Recently, he was uncharacteristically silent. He was no longer talkative but became more and more silent. But Garen also understood that this was just an illusion caused by his excessive growth of power. The domineering feeling of destroying everything was just an illusion caused by the power flowing out of his body. His limit is still only 30 points. That is not only the limit of genes, but also the limit of soul. A weak soul cannot control a strong body, and a weak body cannot carry a strong soul. If the soul is too weak, it will be easily affected by the instinct produced by the body, and it is likely to completely lose itself and become a beast of desire. If the body is too weak, it will not be able to support the operation of the powerful soul. Once the soul power is fully activated, the final result will be that the body's functions will overwork and its potential will be exhausted and die. Simply improving physical strength can only reach the limit of human beings. However, weaknesses such as the need to breathe oxygen and sleep still exist, and practicing secret martial arts can essentially simulate other top creatures, gain their advantages, weaken and completely eliminate your own shortcomings. Garen recovered from his addiction to power, and in a daze he felt like he had become taller and stronger again. After turning on the 5th star, his body was once again affected by the potential, becoming stronger and stronger. Perhaps it also had the effect of reaching 10 points in physical fitness. As soon as he improved himself, a big battle ensued. Nadia was easily defeated by him. This time, perhaps due to the suppression of the mask, Nadia's power did not reach the limit of 30 points last time, but in comparison with Galleon, which reached 30 points, she was completely suppressed, with a crucial punch. In the middle, Garen suppressed everything and decided the outcome with one blow. He gently stroked his forehead, which was the place where Nadia had just been slashed by Nadia's fierce Sky Master. The characteristic of Nadia's fierce Sky Master was that she was hit as soon as she made a move. Although Garen blocked the opponent's sword from behind, he was still hit in the forehead. However, because he had activated the 5th star and mastered the ultimate power, his whole body was as strong as alloy, even more terrifying than alloy. Only then can he bear the knife. How to deal with this kind of martial arts? Garen stood in the moonlight and thought. 3 ways. First, don't let her use the sword at all, don't give her the opportunity and time to use the sword, then this kind of martial arts will naturally be broken. But this is simply impossible. Rebels are also void creatures, they come they go like ghosts, no one can predict when they will appear and when they will disappear. Garen walked to the window and opened it, letting in the cool night breeze. The second way is to crack the mystery of this kind of martial arts. You should be able to find a way to deal with it. There is no perfect and invincible martial arts in the world. But this is not what I can see through now. Quickly shook his head slightly. This was the first time he had seen the fierce sky tyrants. His strongest martial arts, he was hit immediately after he made a move, spanning time and space, all the secrets were only in a moment, and his 5 senses could not touch that moment, so naturally he could not see through the secrets. Then the third method is diversion. Garen stretched out his hand and stared at his white palm. Huanlu Fist, a terrifying hallucinogenic boxing technique that misleads the opponent to attack the target, if it can be used on all living things. This boxing technique can only be used on humans. It is a kind of oppression and influence on the brain nerves. If we can find a way to extend it to affecting souls, then maybe we can transcend species limitations. But this is not something he can transform now. He is still too unfamiliar with the structure of void creatures. But if it can be completed, It can influence Nadia to disperse her power and mislead her to attack other places or even multiple targets. This is diversion. After thinking about how to deal with it for a while, but still having no idea, Garen's eyes return to the attribute bar again. The remaining 234 potential points have little effect simply on physical fitness. In any case, it is impossible to exceed the limit of 30 points, so it is better to leave them and use them in other aspects. There are several directions to choose from, which can be added to the secret martial arts, but the core Cold Hell Peacock skill cannot be improved. It is estimated that the same situation will happen if you switch to another secret martial arts of life. In addition, it can be saved to recover from injuries and prevent accidents later, which is what he has always done. There is another option, which is to add it to one attribute. When it is improved to a certain level, extreme special abilities will appear. For example, when the intelligence of the totem world reaches 12 points, the double strike effect will be produced. This is not an ability that can be achieved by using 7-star life pointing secret points to trick people. But you must actually possess that quality. Dual effect: when a punch is thrown out, it will produce twice the force. It seems to be one punch, but in fact it is just 2 consecutive punches superimposed together. This is the effect produced by highly reflexive nerves. This is the first time he has gained abilities in attributes. When other attributes were raised to 20 points, abilities did not appear. So far, abilities have only appeared when intelligence reached 12 points. After thinking about it, he finally chose intelligence. His eyes were focused on the intelligence column, and suddenly his intelligence, which had reached 7 o'clock, started to jump upwards. Reaching 8 points consumes 20 potential points. Reaching 9 points consumes another 60 potential points. Reaching 10 points consumes another 60 points. After the intelligence reaches 10 points, 140 potential points have been consumed, leaving 94 points left. After reaching 10 points, every improvement in any attribute costs 100 points, and now there are only 94 points left. More potential points are needed. The potential points gained from the 4 masks in Garen's hands have all been used up, and it is not known how long it will take to wait for them to slowly recover. But you can get a mask from Halo right away, which may be able to increase the attribute intelligence to 12 points. Produces a double whammy effect. In this way, his strength will be greatly improved on the original basis. A few days later, the weather was fine. The multi-layered cake-like fountain water rushes down, sprinkling 3 layers of white water, like a small waterfall. Above the fountain pool, 2 metal birds are playing, exquisite and real. The thing is they're underground, we can't get close. Alan Hill looked cold, standing in front of Garen Rhodes and pointing to a big tree between the woods ahead. The big tree was completely black and had no leaves. It was covered with countless thin strips hanging down like a banyan tree. The entire tree body tilted to the left, like a huge wooden pile about to collapse. The 3 of them were standing in the hidden botanical garden of Halo. What they saw in front of them was the most mysterious man-eating tree in Halo. The man-eating tree is extremely aggressive and poisonous. Our people will be attacked by the thin strips when they get close. None of us can bear the toxicity on it, Alan Hill explained. Where's the protective clothing? Rhodes frowned. It's useless, unless you kill the man-eating tree from a distance and then dig out the things. In addition, we have tried every method. Unless it is a very thick protective suit made of special materials, it will be destroyed in a short time. Corroded through, Alan Hill glanced at Garen, as if waiting for him to make up his mind. I promised you not to kill the man-eating tree to get something. Rhodes smiled bitterly and looked at Garen with expectant eyes. In fact, this was not his promise, but Garen's. In order not to delay, in order not to make too many enemies and reduce trouble, Garen chose a more conservative method that both parties agreed on, taking out the mask without killing the man-eating tree. Alan Hill, on the other hand, agreed to take them to the location of the man-eating tree with Rhodes' repeated assurances. In fact, he also knew that even if he disagreed, he could not stop Garen, so it was better to be more generous than this. You just have to figure it out. There's nothing we can do. He stepped aside and watched with cold eyes. He was prepared for the loss of the man-eating tree being knocked down. Since he didn't dare to settle this debt with Galleon, he naturally blamed it on Rhodes. He hated Rhodes. I'll do it. Garen was wearing a black elastic vest, black trousers, and a delicate belt, which highlighted his slender legs. Glancing at Alan Hill beside him, he clenched his hands, made a clicking sound, moved his shoulders, and strode towards the man-eating tree in the distance. It was morning, the weather was not very hot yet, the sun was halfway up, and only a small ray of light fell on the botanical garden, on the right side of Galen, making the grass on the ground become increasingly green. The strange thing is that with the man-eating tree as the center, within a radius of more than 10 meters, there is no grass or other plants at all, only black soil and some white bones. A breeze blew by, and whether it was the wind blowing or the movement itself, the branches of the man-eating tree began to sway slightly. Suddenly, as if feeling threatened, the tree began to tremble slightly. Etc. Hessaz's voice suddenly came out. Garen's steps stopped abruptly and he stood there. What? He frowned slightly. A mere man-eating tree, no matter how rare it was just a big tree. This tree, affected by the mask, seems a little weird. Hessaz couldn't tell what the situation was. Be careful. Several people behind him stared at Garen nervously. Although they didn't understand why he stopped, Rhodes and Alan Hill each had their own thoughts and stared at Garen closely, waiting for him to really approach the man-eating tree. Moment. Garen's stopped steps finally lifted up again. Suddenly, there was a slight blur in front of his eyes, and the sky turned dark at some point. The people who were originally guarding around seemed to be gone. Garen frowned, feeling an extremely strange feeling welling up in his heart. He looked back and saw that Rhodes and Alan Hill who were standing behind him were gone, and he was the only one left in the entire botanical garden. Looking back, he seemed to see a woman in a white dress secretly looking at him on the edge of the big tree. The woman's face couldn't be seen clearly. Most of her face was covered by the tree trunk, only one eye and long black hair were exposed. The eye was huge and unblinking. I don't know when the sky became cloudy and gloomy. It's a dream. Garen was familiar with this feeling. He often went in and out of this environment, so he easily discovered his abnormality. He seemed to be hypnotized by the man-eating tree and entered a specific dream. It seemed that the influence of the mask made the tree look a little weird. He looked at the woman next to the tree and took a few steps to the left, trying to see the woman's face clearly. But the strange thing is that the woman is always at an angle where only half of her face is exposed. When he moved, the woman also moved. A boring trick. Garen sneered and strode towards the man-eating tree. It started to approach violently, 10 meters, 9 meters, 8 meters, 7 meters, 6 meters, 5 meters. Garen suddenly stopped. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 678. He raised his arm and saw an earthworm-like line suddenly protruding from the skin on his hand. The line slowly swam between the skin and flesh, like a fish swimming in the water. It seemed to be a living creature, or some kind of bug. Is it an illusion? Garen closed his eyes and opened them again. The lines on his hands disappeared. He continued to stride towards the man-eating tree, and the hanging branches around him began to swing, and they were densely packed like long human hair. Whoosh! Countless branches all gathered together at once, as if knitting a sweater, and the branches quickly knitted a butterfly several meters wide, a black butterfly. The butterfly flapped its wings gently, pulling countless black branches and floating in front of Garen. Hiss! A thin slit suddenly opened in the middle of the butterfly's body, and it suddenly opened like a mouth. Tear! Garen dug his hands deeply into the small slit in the middle of the butterfly's mouth, and tore the butterfly in half with two hands. What else can you do? Show them all, Garen sneered and strode towards the man-eating tree. The woman appeared again, with only one eye exposed, looking at Garen quietly from the left side. Garen suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed half of the woman's face, but his grasp was suddenly empty. He was a little stunned. With his speed, he couldn't catch the opponent accurately. This farce should be over. He raised his right arm, and the whole arm suddenly swelled, and the skin and muscles quickly turned into a terrifying blue-black color, with a trace of metallic luster. The first star was turned on instantly. Aiming at the center of the man-eating tree, he grabbed hard with his right hand. Ah! There was a sharp scream. Garen's eyes suddenly flashed. Amidst the scream that seemed to be a neutral voice, he stabbed his right hand directly into the trunk of the man-eating tree. When he came back to his senses, he was standing in front of the big tree, the sky was bright all around, and the low voices of Rhodes and Alan Hill could be heard faintly behind him. There was also the commotion around Alan Hill's men. His right hand was stabbing hard into the tree trunk, and bright red blood was slowly flowing out from the edge of the wound on the trunk. Wow! Withdrawing his arm, Garen lowered his head and looked at his feet. The soil there unexpectedly separated automatically, revealing the corner of a slightly black mask underneath. He squatted down, grabbed the mask, pulled it out with all his strength. The familiar cool air flowed quickly into his arms, which was the potential value. You defeated an invisible creature. Hessaz's voice sounded at this time, but this invisible creature seems to have little power. Apart from the corrosiveness and virus of the man-eating tree itself, it only has a little hallucination ability. It has no effect on you, but it is very scary for ordinary people's existence. Garen understood that invisible creatures existed in a world that humans could not see, and they were existences that he found difficult to understand. Quickly returned to Rhodes' location. Both of them stared at him as if they had seen a ghost. I got it, the mask. Garen shook the mask in his hand. Why are you looking at me like that? Rhodes pointed at Garen's shoulder, his fingers trembling a little, as if he saw something terrible. Garen lowered his head and saw a thin line like an earthworm constantly swimming on the skin of his shoulder. It was like a living creature swimming around the left shoulder and neck. It's the curse of invisible creatures, Hessaz explained in a timely manner. Some invisible creatures place curses on creatures that offend them. But for you, you only need to go back and use the void core to purify it, but for ordinary people, it is as terrifying as a desperate situation. This thin line is called gluttony. It will bite the muscles continuously at first, and then it will get into the internal organs and devour it. Until the person dies. Garen understood, and took out a small purple-black void core fragment from his trouser pocket, and gently pressed it on the thin line. Suddenly a burst of green smoke came out. Hiss! Waves of smoke appeared directly from the thin line, and soon it was completely offset by the debris, and seemed to be absorbed. This thing is a bit weird, it seems to be some kind of parasite. Rhodes was relieved. Let's go. Garen held up his mask and walked toward the exit of the botanical garden. Rhodes followed closely behind. Behind him, Alan Hill stared at him with complicated eyes. Garen did it and got the mask without killing the man-eating tree. In fact, what he did was not called digging at all, but seemed to be sent to him by the man-eating tree itself. I looked back at the man-eating tree. It looked lifeless and seemed to have been greatly damaged, but it was better than being completely knocked down. What happened to Cole and Cohen? He asked Mora in a low voice, who was leaning next to him. They haven't caught it yet, but I'm afraid they are still looking for opportunities. This time the Nighthawk King suddenly came over. It must be the news they revealed, Mora replied in a low voice. This time is indeed very dangerous. If it weren't for Rhodes's relationship, I am afraid that the King of Nighthawks would have come directly, and the Halo would have suffered a lot of damage at that time. Are you sure that Cole and Cohen have nothing to do with the Nighthawk King? Alan Hill asked in a low voice. After investigation, Cohen was almost killed by the king of Nighthawks in Africa. In the end, he was let go for some unknown reason. Mora answered that intelligence and tracking were his forte. Then kill them. I will take action myself. This was considered a transfer of hatred by Alan Hill. He was beaten up by Garin and suffered internal injuries. His precious man-eating tree was also injured and his low-profile mask was taken away. He didn't dare to say a single harsh word and had to accompany him the whole time. This made him feel angry and useless. To the extreme. Garin, who was walking away in the distance, regained his attention and a smile appeared on his lips. He didn't care what purpose Cohen wanted to use him to achieve, as long as he achieved his own purpose, that was enough. As for his life or death, that has nothing to do with him. Time flies, and more than a month has passed in the blink of an eye. The weather in Germany is gradually getting colder, and winter has entered November. White snow covered the entire outskirts of Berlin city. The mask Garin got from under the man-eating tree did not provide many potential points, only more than 80 points. It seemed that the man-eating tree itself was also absorbing this power, consuming a lot of it. Part of the potential, not much left. Adding 82 points to the remaining 94 points, the final result is 176 points, which is enough to add one attribute to intelligence, reaching 11 points. After 10 points, the number of potential points required to improve attributes is simply terrifying. 1 point requires 100 points. It would be absolutely easy in the totem world, but it is extremely difficult to find here. After these potential points were used up, Garin had no choice but to start looking for the whereabouts of a new mask again. Fortunately, the mask of the man-eating tree is the 5th mask. After obtaining this mask, the superimposed force field of all the masks seems to have a good suppression on the dragon-shaped coin. The number of Nadia's attacks decreased for a while. And its power was temporarily weakened. But soon Nadia seemed to have used some special means to get closer again. The further increase in power forced Garin to continue looking for a new mask. According to the information provided by Rhodes, the 6th mask exists in the global jungle zone, the Memphis Jungle. The Memphis Jungle is a region unique to this world. It is like a green belt surrounding the entire planet, spreading and stretching endlessly. The location of the mask is said to be on the edge of a rare and hidden moon river. The Moon River is a river shaped like a crescent moon. There are no less than a dozen places in the Memphis Jungle. And just as he was about to leave for the Memphis Jungle, the news about Lotus Leaf Pearl finally came back. After Rhodes negotiated with the original color, the other party gave up the Lotus Leaf Bead, and the sea snake and seal teamed up to hunt it down, and finally killed it in a port in New Zealand. Squeaky. On the outskirts of Berlin, on a trail, the thick layer of white snow made a crisp sound when the boots stepped on it. A man in a gray coat exhaled white breath and walked on the road that had not yet been cleared. To his right were towering gray-white villas, and to his left were rows of dense snow-covered pine forests. Black soil could be faintly seen under the white snow. In front is a snowy road that leads straight to an unknown place, and behind is the entrance where the road and the trail meet. A black jeep can be faintly seen parked on the edge of the entrance. The man was holding a black leather bag in his hand. He walked a little further, went directly to the left and went up the steps of a villa, and gently pressed the doorbell. Ding! The doorbell kept ringing. After a while, there was a click and the door opened. A middle-aged maid with a dull face opened the door, nodded to him, and made a gesture of inviting him in without saying a word. The man seemed to know the maid. Thank you, Makayulai. He walked in with his bag, took off the hood of his coat, revealing his bald head, took off his coat and handed it to the maid. Carrying a bulging black leather bag with one hand, the man changed his shoes and climbed up to the 2nd floor. Stepping on the black wooden boards, he walked directly to the door of a room on the right and knocked lightly. Please come in. A deep male voice came from inside. The man opened the door and saw a handsome blond man sitting inside, slowly putting down his cell phone and turning sideways towards him. From his angle, he could also vaguely see the content flashing on the phone screen. It seemed like a small talk with family members. The blond man sitting in the seat still had a gentle smile on his face. The things have been brought, he quickly collected himself, not daring to look further. Okay, it was handed over by someone from the Sea Serpent, right? The blond man is Garen, who has been in Berlin for a while. He basically doesn't go to school anymore and is working hard on the mask. He explains to his family that he is running a company outside and is busy starting a business. University is not of great use to him. Anyway, as long as he finally gets a diploma, it will be fine. Galen has thoroughly studied the courses at Gollyville University, and has already submitted all the assessment papers and investigation reports in advance. As long as you have enough credits, the school will not care what you do. The bald man stepped forward and placed the black handbag in his hand on the galleon table. He opened the zipper with a hiss, took out a black plastic bag, placed it on the table, and opened the plastic bag. A faint musky smell suddenly filled the air. What was placed in the plastic bag was a round human head. This is a lotus leaf bead, which represents Mr. Rhodes' sincerity, Bald Cotton whispered. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 679. Lotus Leaf Pearl. Garen put down his phone and looked at the woman's head with wide eyes on the table. This woman's face is extremely ugly. There is a large sarcoma on her right cheekbone. She now looks extremely pale because of the lack of blood. His eyes were narrow, and they seemed to still have the sinister look in his life. Stretching out his hand, Garen gently stroked Haiju's cheek. The texture was soft, as if he were alive. Take it to Jay and bury it in front of the tombstone. Yes, the bald head nodded in agreement, wrapped his head again, and retreated. Garen held his chin with one hand and tapped the table lightly with the other hand. Da-da-da. Soon there was a ringing sound outside the door, and the mute maid Makayuli opened the door pushing a white dining cart and came in. The dining cart was covered with white cloth and exuded a faint aroma. They were all Chinese dishes that Garen remembered. Carefully selected chefs specialize in cooking the dishes he likes. After the dining car entered, a black girl strode in from the outside. This girl was wearing a tight black leather jacket, with shoulder-length hair, smooth and gorgeous, and beautiful features. She was clearly the woman from the Primary Color organization who led Garen. Leader. After taking off the disguise, she was still a young girl under 20 years old. Just after she led Garen to destroy the White Phoenix base, Yuan's issued a wanted order for her. Now she doesn't dare to go anywhere and can only stay with Garen. Instead, the most dangerous place has become the safest place. The conflict between Primary Color and Nighthawk is actually the conflict between Granlin and Garen, but now that Garen and the Lesserty group are involved, such a huge giant of the same level is also a great threat to the original Color group. A huge influence, especially when Rhodes' brother is a very important figure in the upper echelons of Lesserty's group. Disagreement has also emerged within the original Color. Granlin's power has become increasingly isolated, and Garan has become safer. He-Man, how are you? Garen smiled and looked at the young female leader. In fact, she was only 19 years old this year and was one of the elite reserves within the original Color team. How about what? Seaman sat on the seat in front of Galen's table. The disciples you need to train are here. When will you show up? No rush. Garen shook his head. Speaking of which, what are your plans as an elite selected by the original Color in advance? Seaman's own qualifications and foundation are far beyond those of those pampered little guys. Such a good as long as his qualifications are properly controlled, he is an excellent assistant and talent. Just after Jay's death, Garen also began to feel that he lacked a personal assistant around him. My plan, Seaman was also asked for a moment. She has no parents. She was raised by her aunt since she was a child. Later she met an older brother who was also a drug lord. Her relationship was not very close. In primary colors, everyone is also in love. Indifferent, I don't have many friends. I only have one friend in London. Thinking about it carefully, I can't find a good place to go or a destination. Unexpectedly, I can only stay here in Galen. If you don't have any plans, then just follow me and learn boxing. Garen crossed his hands into fists and looked at her with a smile. Your qualifications are very good. The power only needs to be in your own hands, and that is enough. He-Man looked at Garen and seemed to see his hands glowing slightly, a faint white halo of light. The light seemed to be extremely attractive, drawing all her attention in. You want to control me again? She tried hard to turn her head, but she couldn't move her eyes without blinking. This is not control, Garen said softly, in an extremely soft tone, this is just to help you choose. Seaman felt that his whole body was weak and his mind was dizzy. After a while, he fell on the side and fell asleep. The maid next to her, Makayulai, glanced at her inexplicably and continued to carefully place the dishes on the desk. She couldn't understand the accent of the language the two spoke. Garen was used to eating in the study, a habit he had developed long ago. Miss Fuziman, go out and rest, Garen ordered. Makayulai nodded, helped Ziman up, and slowly left the room. Garen stayed alone in the room, silent for a moment. Everything is on track. The most important suppression of nine-headed dragon King Nadia has had an effect. The mask has confirmed that it does have a certain suppression effect on her coordinates. Unfortunately, I don't know whether the power of the coin is too strong or the force field of the imitation mask is too weak, causing Nadia's strength to readapt and begin to grow again. In these days of confrontation with her, he has always been at a disadvantage. The remaining masks must be found. Hesaz's voice sounded, at the same time, you must complete the grimoire as soon as possible. Maybe you can build your second soul seed. Once the second soul seed is built, you may be able to further break through the limit of power and reach a higher level. Remember, no matter what, your soul is your foundation. Of course I understand this, both must be done at the same time, Garen replied in a low voice, while starting to eat, thin strips of beef in sauce, steamed rice tamales, stir-fried shredded potatoes, and fragrant braised eggplant. The series of dishes made Garen feel like he was back on Earth. He only had such a familiar yet unfamiliar feeling every time he ate. It started to snow again outside the window, silently, but Garen could hear the sound of snowflakes falling on the road. He glanced out the window, where white foamy snowflakes streaked across the window. In the blink of an eye, it has been more than 20 years since he came to this world. In this world where blood witches and technology coexist, the threat of void creatures is gradually approaching, and the entire environment is becoming more complex and changeable. After eating quietly, Garen asked the maid to clear away the tableware. He sat in the room for a while, then got up and slowly left the room. He walked to a wall on the second floor and gently touched the white wall. Knock it up a few times. Wow! The wall quickly opened a portal to the left, revealing a dark, quiet room inside. After closing the door of the room, Garen turned on the light inside, and the newly installed light suddenly lit up, so white that it was even a bit pale. He walked to the wall at the end of the quiet room and gently pressed his hand on the wall, causing it to tremble slightly. With a snap, a hidden compartment like a drawer popped up on the wall. What was placed inside was the grimoire and the dragon-shaped coin covered by a mask. The grimoire was placed at the top. This originally ordinary black notebook now had mysterious patterns faintly appearing on the cover, like silver vines, covering the entire notebook. Garen gently picked up the grimoire. The texture of the paper was obviously just the most ordinary material, but it seemed to be contaminated by the soul breath that penetrated when he was writing. The entire grimoire showed a texture like human skin, and seemed to be made from living human skin. Taking out the pen from between the notebooks, Garin returned to the study and sat down, closed the door, and began to slowly read through what he had written so far. Dual Phase Water Bird Fist, Xing Mi Wu, Huan Lu Fist, Killing Hand. He only wrote a small part of Hand of Killing. This magic skill, Galen, which originated from Hesaz, was not fully cultivated by himself. He only wrote down the part he had mastered during the writing process, which was regarded as a reflection of his own understanding and knowledge. An arrangement of the system. Write out the secret martial arts of your own dark side, integrate them into one, and form a real core. This is the magic power seed, which is the magic power seed that is most suitable for you. Completing the magic skills should eventually form your second soul seed, Hesaz said in a low voice. He seems to be a bit silent recently. He doesn't speak much and only talks about the key points. This is a process of eliminating impure systems, Garin nodded. He picked up the pen and slowly wrote on it his understanding of the killing hand. Time passed minute by minute, and soon more than 2 hours passed. The part about the killing hand was almost finished. Garin recorded the entire practice method of the killing hand and his own understanding. The moment he finished writing, he felt as if the entire grimoire was beating like a heart. Plop! The whole room seemed to be beating for a moment. Garin even felt that his heart was also affected. For a moment, his heartbeat coincided with the beating of the grimoire. He closed his eyes and saw that the grimoire in his mind was also beating for a moment. The afterglow was still slowly dissipating, and the covers of the two grimoires seemed to be getting darker and darker. Garin plans to record all his dark side secret weapons. Count down all the dark side secret martial arts that you have practiced. An evil skill that he relied on in his previous life appeared in front of him. Northern Halbi Dir Hanyan Zhen Shui Siegong. Picking up the pen, Garin slowly wrote this line of names on the grimoire. The moment he finished writing, the entire grimoire seemed to glow with a hint of blue as ice. Snapped. The vase was smashed to the ground and shattered. Greenland's face was exposed with veins, he was breathing heavily, his throat was constantly trembling, and his whole body seemed to be on the verge of collapse with anger. In the gorgeous golden room filled with lanterns and wall lamps, there were two other subordinates standing in front of him. Although they were dressed neatly in suits and leather shoes, there were dense beads of sweat on their foreheads, and neither of them dared to bend down. Stand up straight. Hiezu is dead. I just finished talking to her on the phone less than half a day ago, and now you suddenly come over and tell me that she is dead. Granlund did not hide his anger at all. Hiezu is his most capable general. Although his temperament is a bit eccentric, his assassination ability is indeed top-notch, and he is unrivaled among others. And now, she is dead. Granlund seemed to be holding a fire in his heart. Garin Thomas, he almost said the name through gritted teeth. Team leader, we have issued a document from above not to have a full-scale conflict with Nighthawk, a subordinate said cautiously. Roll. Glenn slapped him fiercely. With a snap, the subordinate was whipped so hard that he fell to the ground, covered his face, lowered his head and quickly exited the room. You think there's nothing I can do if you hug Lizardy's thick legs? Granlund's face was twisted. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 680. Hiezu's death was a great loss to him. A special mercenary who stood by him and his father was almost one of the top forces in the group. He was killed by the other party so easily. Although the murderers were the sea snakes and seals of Emperor Lisa, everyone with a discerning eye knew that Emperor Lisa was the one who came forward for Nighthawk. Garin's friend Rhodes and his brother were the most terrifying person of Emperor Lisa. One of the four giants is the top leader of Emperor Lesha, known as the Four Black Shadows. They are on the same level as the top titans of the original color. The two sides have fought against each other for many years, but they are just between equals. With such an immediate family member taking action, Granlin had almost no power to resist. Unless his father personally took action, no senior group leader would be willing to conflict with the other party just because his family's power was weakened. Look at the last subordinate. Granlin barely suppressed the anger in his heart. What is the Nighthawk King doing now? It is said that they are searching for the legendary mask of Sleepless Face with Rhodes. The external reason is that Garen likes masks very much. But the real intention is that he has other intentions, the subordinate quickly replied. Mask of the Sleepless Face, Granlin murmured in a low voice. Recently, it is said that there is a legend that a mysterious antique contains a special power, which can make an ordinary person transcend the world. Yes. Not real. According to the investigation, it should have a certain effect, but the specific rumor came from the high-level people who left the Men in Black and it has not been confirmed. We don't have a specific standard for judging antique cultural relics, the subordinate replied, judging from his mood. Better, he added cautiously. Do you want us to conduct an actual investigation? That Nighthawk King Garen is so keen on this, there should be some connection. Go and check. There are also secrets about the control behind Nighthawk. You can learn more about the secret martial arts. This precious thing should be in our hands and cannot be spread outside, Granlin thought. Nighthawk's mysterious control method makes his heart a little hot. It is a way that can allow ordinary people to reach extremely powerful martial arts heights in a short time. This is undoubtedly something that must be in his hands. Once he obtains this method, perhaps he can also reach considerable heights within the group. Germany, Bailey Manor. Cabu hugged his son happily, pinched his face and teased him affectionately. Sitting on the white semicircular balcony, familiar footsteps could be heard faintly behind me. Cabu looked back and saw a familiar shadow. Medes, what's the new news? According to the latest information, Galen spends a period of time in the villa every day in a secret room, not knowing what he is doing inside. Medes walked behind Cabu. This young man was cunning and shrewd, with a feminine and handsome appearance. He was indeed very capable in the field of intelligence. He could even investigate the Nighthawk King's daily life and diet in detail. He glanced at the boss's son, his chubby little face looking around, and then continued. We have tried to investigate the people inside Nighthawk. According to the information obtained through some means, the entire Nighthawk and the fighting club should be controlled by one person, Garen. This method should be what you guessed, the boss, through the special ability of the mask. S method. I heard that Garen is going to Memphis soon. Cabu smiled and teased his son. Where did you get the information about the secret room? Yes, it is said that they are looking for a new mask. This information has been obtained from the manpower and operations arranged by Rhodes. Big moves cannot be concealed. The other party does not seem to have any intention of concealing it, Medes nodded. Regarding the secret room, I used unconscious investigation methods. Every once in a while, I would use different hands to monitor the activities in the villa from the corner of their eyes. I did not tell them to check Garen himself, but asked them to monitor the mute maid. As the maid who takes care of Galen's daily life has a lot of things in the villa that it is difficult for her to hide. Well done, and pay attention to Garen's schedule, Cabu whispered. The original Granlin was suppressed, and he must be very unwilling to do so. One of his special mercenaries was killed, and Rhodes sided with Garen. With the addition of the two master groups of sea snakes and seals, plus Garen himself, this was already a force that cannot be underestimated. Try to be on good terms with Garen as much as possible. Use safe means to find out. What is in that secret room? I understand. Medes nodded slightly to express understanding. Cabu pinched his son's cheek. Puff. Little fatty vomited all over my face. Ha ha ha, you have strength. I like it, Cabu laughed, and Medes couldn't help but laugh too. Writing grimoires was far more difficult than Garen imagined. I originally thought that I had thoroughly understood many secret martial arts. When I carefully explored and wrote down my memories step by step, many inconspicuous difficulties and obstacles appeared. These were all things I had never noticed before. Many steps I thought I understood. There are actually more difficulties hidden inside. When writing about the northern Halbi or Hanyan Zhen Shui Xiegong, he encountered problems one after another, and there were actually dozens of them. While constantly thinking about and improving these issues, the changes in the grimoire have become more and more obvious. Garin has actually written half of his secret martial arts, and the grimoire seems to have grown to half of its size like a plant. Perhaps when he has completely finished writing the grimoire, it will be the time when the magic power that is most suitable for him will be formed. At that time, it will be the magic power that he has summarized based on himself. It will be practiced extremely quickly, and he will eventually reach the state of a soul seed and break through the limit. This is his purpose. This aspect went extremely well, but the other aspect didn't quite work. For training, Nighthawk recommended and sent voluntary practitioners from all over the country. All of them were young masters and noble ladies. They complained endlessly after a little training. On the first day of training, some people quit on the spot and wanted to go home. But he was knocked unconscious by Garin's slaps one after another. Just kidding, these people were all selected by him and had decent qualifications and good backgrounds. If he just let them go back honestly, it wouldn't be a waste of his time. Garin directly used violent methods. Anyway, he had his own background in Nighthawk and the Fighting Club, and he also had the support of the behemoth of Rhodes Lizardy Group. Snapped. 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 The extremely rhythmic beating sound echoed in the center of the spacious indoor sports field. A circle of students wearing black training uniforms formed a circle with an open space in the middle, where stood Galen and another female student, Seaman. Seaman got up from the ground again and again, with a determined look on his face. Both sides of his face were swollen like red buns, and traces of blood flowed from the corners of his mouth. Under the bright yellow light, Seaman rushed towards Garin again. Ah! She let out a heartbreaking scream, as if she wanted to use it to embolden herself, but there was no accident. There was a moment of dizziness, the world turned upside down, and there was another crisp snap. Seaman was slapped again and staggered a few steps to the left. Unable to hold on any longer, he sat down with a bang. Is this the close combat skill that you are proud of? Garin was shirtless, wearing only black trousers and a shiny black belt. His fair and strong sculpted muscles moved slightly, and many places seemed to be tightened by springs. It made a crisp sound like a string. For 4 days, I let you go through basic training, not just to torture you and teach you a lesson. Garin looked around. These people are almost all children of upper-class backgrounds in the United States and other countries. These people will be the same seeds as Damozeman, and may grow different flowers around the world. I have 3 choices for my section: the biphase water bird sect, the projection sect, and the Bayun section. He plans to teach the Bayun sect giant elephant secret martial arts again and sow seeds in this world. In fact, the giant elephant secret martial arts should no longer be called simply the giant elephant secret martial arts, but should be called the divine image skill, and it should be based on the divine image skill as the core and fused with some of the essence of the black water true skill to form the pinnacle of terrifying hard skills. The world of martial arts relies on the top secret martial arts to reach the king of the world. The God statue Kung Fu is the most upright and powerful secret martial arts technique, but the most bizarre thing is that when Garin was writing the magic book, he accidentally wrote the God statue Kung Fu into it. This technique actually has the properties of other magic techniques. Once he has his based on the soul attractor breath, one can quickly achieve a very powerful state and reach a very high level of power, but it also has strong sequelae and becomes a version that is close to magic power. Garin renamed the secret martial arts as the Demon Elephant skill, which reminded him of the Demon Elephant Gate in the secret martial arts world. Everything originated from Bayun Gate, which was his starting point and the past that he could never forget. We all know the water bird fist and Xing Mai Wu, but what is the Baiyun sect? Can you ask the teacher to explain it in detail? A young boy with a heroic face among the students asked loudly. His name is Sisi, and he is the second heir of an ancient European family. Compared to the brilliant aura of his first heir, he is much inconspicuous. He is one of the few students among this group who actively wants to learn boxing. 1. Gallon's Fighting Club has been making a fuss in the United States recently. Dam holds fighting competitions everywhere. Recently, it seems that he is cooperating with Horsemen to organize the World Fighting Competition, setting up a huge grand prize of 50 million euros, and can also reimburse travel expenses to various places. This attracts many strong players from all over the world. The reputation of water bird boxing and Xing Mai Wu has spread widely. For a time, many secret boxing and fighting schools from all over the world were drawn out and went to the United States to participate in the competition. Advertisements are everywhere promoting the competition and the source of Dam Osman's boxing skills. The teacher of the two did not have a name to promote, but was unanimously respected as the Holy Fist by the two major groups. Living in the Holy Fist Palace high on the mountain, he is a saint in the realm of supreme boxing. No one knows what the Holy Fist looks like, and no one knows who he is. Only some members of the fighting club know the truth that the Holy Fist is Garin. Horsemen and Dam seem to be deifying the status of Mizutorai. Several students who were well informed and knew the inside story understood that the tyrannical man wearing a mask in front of them was the legendary Holy Fist. Naturally, they understood what a rare opportunity it was to be taught by the Holy Fist in person. Maybe they could become the next Huo Fist. Seaman and Dam control tens of billions of dollars and rights. Garin glanced at the boy named Sith. He was young, only 19 years old. He looks heroic and is a typical sunny young man. Bayanman is a school based on the Golem Kung Fu. This secret martial art is derived from an ancient powerful boxing method. It is different from the water bird fist projection boxing style. It is a frontal confrontation method. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 681. Fighting boxing didn't fully understand the meaning. Isn't the water bird boxing also a head-on confrontation boxing technique? That's different. Garin raised his right hand, and his arm suddenly swelled. Boom. He punched the ground beneath his feet, causing rumbles of gravel and dust to fly up, and a fist hole more than half a meter wide suddenly appeared on the ground. The surrounding edges are all crushed cement powder. The half-meter wide hole looked as if it had been dug out, and was more than 10 centimeters deep. The dust was flying and made the students around him cough uncontrollably. Some were simply not choked, but were shaken by loud noises and vibrations that made their throats itch and cough. Gilug. Someone's throat twitched and they made the sound of swallowing saliva. This is a head-on confrontation. Garin took out his fist, but his arm was not damaged at all. Suddenly, there was a sound of gasping. All the students stared at his arm, trying to find a trace of a wound on it, but unfortunately, no one found even a trace of a scratch, not even a white mark scratch. Can see. For a time, all the students felt surges of excitement in their hearts. If only I could be so powerful. This is the desire in everyone's heart. No matter who the man is, he has the desire to make himself stronger. Such powerful and domineering boxing skills immediately won the favor of most people. Garin was satisfied with the results of his demonstration. He put down his arm and his whole arm immediately retracted back to its original position, as if nothing had happened, except for a big hole under his feet. The principle of Golem Kung Fu is to make oneself stronger and harder, and the strength recovery ability becomes extremely strong, reaching the highest level of the God idol. Those who want to practice, stand on the right side. Garin said loudly. Among the 15 students at the moment, 8 of them were all boys. They stood on the right side, all of them looking excited and expecting. The strange thing about these boys is that most of them are thin and thin. This includes the Sith. Among the remaining 7 people, 5 were girls, and the remaining 2 men were strong. Although they seemed a little tempted, they obviously had their own goals and clear positioning, and they still resisted the temptation. Others can go back today. We will gather here at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. I will focus on teaching the secret martial arts of Xing. Those who want to learn can come here. Garen raised a finger. Remember, everyone only if you can learn one boxing technique, but if you add other boxing techniques before this boxing technique reaches a certain level, the progress will be very slow, and it may take many years to barely reach a certain level. Remember, don't be greedy for more. Yes. Understood. The remaining 7 people all responded. Seeing Garen showing such terrifying strength, no one had any disrespect. Everyone completely recognized Garen's teaching and training. 5 girls and 2 boys exited the indoor training ground, passed through Nighthawk's special protection line, drove away temporarily, and returned to a centralized accommodation not far away. There was a girl who wanted to come back quietly to peep, but was picked up by the guarding Nighthawk members and thrown out. Garen waited until everyone else had left before looking at the 8 people in front of him again. Some of the 8 boys were polite, some were wretched, and some had dark faces, but they all looked at him with expectant faces at this time. Now let's start the formal explanation. Please pay attention. I won't repeat it a second time. Garen looked at the group of students in front of him with his hands behind his back. This class may affect your whole life. I don't know if you will regret taking this path in the future, but now that you have chosen to come here, there is no turning back. Teacher. I will never regret it. Sith stood up suddenly and shouted loudly. What we want is the power to control our destiny. A boy who looked the thinnest and sickest also stood up. This guy's name was Loma. He overdosed on drugs and became a complete drug addict, which also led to systemic failure. Was almost given up by the family, and came here with the mentality of treating a dead horse as a living horse doctor. Garen took a deep look at the 2 guys who had expressed their opinions for the first time and kept them in mind. Okay. Let's start the first phase now. The demonic statue Kung Fu is divided into 4 stages: divine statue Kung Fu, golden statue Kung Fu, iron statue Kung Fu, and bronze statue Kung Fu. The physique of this group of people is appalling, and they must start from the most basic foundation building skills of the bronze statue. This time, there was not enough vitality to support them at will. After Garen's own killing hand was broken, although he could still store some vitality, it was already very little and could only play a life-threatening role. Therefore, the training this time is more rigorous than that of Hoseman and his team. Garen also truly intends to cultivate a group of his own team. It is difficult to survive alone in this world, and he needs more strength and power to make his life easier and more convenient. In the world of secret martial arts, he was too focused on himself. In the final battle with Xianflan, his body was destroyed by a nuclear bomb. If there is a strong enough network of forces and intelligence systems, it is impossible for such a thing to happen, and the news will be received long before it happens, instead of being attacked head-on in the end. These students are the seeds he selected. They all have unique conditions and only need a little guidance to bloom extremely beautiful flowers. The training lasted for more than 4 hours. As one of the most basic secret martial arts exercises, the bronze statue skill, combined with the improved secret breathing method of the giant elephant secret warrior, were both perfect. This group of students complained endlessly, and each and every one of them truly realized what it means to be in the body. The whole body is burning, and the heart feels like angina. Fortunately, there is a buffer from the previous exercise, otherwise they will completely faint from the pain this time. Jia Long uses high-frequency vibration as the core technique. He directly shakes the qi and blood of these students one by one, and asks them to practice and cooperate with the breathing method and the bronze statue Gongxin method. This has an excellent effect. In this process, the soul breath introduction is gradually integrated, allowing their secret martial arts practice to be linked to Garen's own soul seeds. He recently discovered that since the soul seed breath was planted into the bodies of Hosaman and several others, as Hosamandam and other members of the fighting club improved day by day, his soul seeds seemed to be undergoing strange changes, and they seemed to be stronger. After the professor finished training this group of students, he arranged for someone to take them back to their dormitory, and there were dedicated masseurs and nutritionists to take care of their lives. Garen then left the training hall. On the way back, he asked Heshas about this problem. It's very simple, soul seeds also have levels. Heshas gave the answer easily. After countless years of exploration, the warlocks have explored the various realms of the soul. Although there are still deeper ones that have not been explored, it is enough for us to benefit from. The realm of the soul? How do you say it? Garen asked in a low voice while driving the car. Ordinary soul stage. This is the first stage, very ordinary. Strong and weak are divided by color. There is nothing to say. You were promoted from this stage in the first place, so you should be clearer. Garen nodded. The second is the soul seed stage, which is your current level. The reason why it is called a seed is because it means that it is highly condensed and condensed into one point. Of course, it also has the potential to take root and sprout in the future. At this stage, you can start to have some special effects, such as gradually reversely transforming your innate physique, making it better and more in line with the rules of the world. This is the second stage. The third stage is the true spirit stage, which is the stage that we and the warlocks have reached before. Reaching this level is equivalent to a very high-level existence. Time and lifespan are greatly extended, and oneself is not at all true. The spirit can hide in the Mother River. Even if the body dies, there is a small chance that it will be resurrected if there is a chance. The core of the soul in the true spirit stage is immortal at all, so it is called true spirit, which means the real soul. Without being washed, and decomposed by the Mother River, even if you are reincarnated in the Mother River, you can recall everything about your previous life without being affected by ignorance. Your soul's nature has the attributes of time and space, and it has characteristics similar to those of a true spirit, but it is far less powerful than a true spirit. Heshas explained it in detail. It is said that there are higher stages, but I have no way to access them. Maybe the topmost existences of the warlocks may have the opportunity to access them, but even the 3 stages are already very difficult. We will break down each stage according to the bottleneck. It is divided into many levels and subsections to determine your precise progress. In this way, it is divided into dozens of stages. You are now at the most basic level of the soul seed, and it is still early. Garen nodded, and he also guessed that since soul seeds are called seeds, they naturally have stages of complete growth and germination. When you reach the true spirit stage, you will have your own true name. It is the natural pronunciation given by the rules and laws of the true spirit. It is the name of the soul that must not be leaked. It has incredible power. The longer your true name is, the stronger your power will be. The more tyrannical it is, it's too early to say this now. Heshas mentioned it casually and said no more. Soul, soul seed, true spirit, 3 stages. Garen recited this level division silently, with a faint longing in his heart. Then how many stages do my soul seeds need to pass before I can go one step further? He asked again. It's still early, and no one can tell the development of the soul. We are just exploring one of the ways. There are still many unknown possibilities. Don't think too much now. The existence of true spirits is beyond the reach of even our demon kings. It is a top-level powerhouse among warlocks. Don't look at the fact that there are many true spirits from our ancient sounds in the Mother River, but those are non-ideological and cannot be resurrected. They are just the traces of our past, passively recorded by the Mother River, which are different from the existence of true spirits. He paused. In fact, according to our theory, everyone has a true soul. In the Mother River, any soul is decomposed, and continues to be decomposed to a very small level until it can no longer be decomposed. This can no longer be the decomposed soul part is the so-called true spirit. If a creature's wisdom and perception cannot penetrate into the most subtle, core, and deepest part of its soul, then at this point, naturally all memories will be completely erased by the mother river and become reconstruct the raw material core of the new soul. However, if you can reach the level of the true spirit, you can preserve your memory and reincarnate throughout your life, unless your true spirit is artificially destroyed. Such existences exist in single digits even among warlocks and void creatures, so you don't have to think about it in comparison. Souls with the attributes of time and space still have the upper hand just like you. Such a soul itself is extremely weak, but it conforms to some of the rules of time and space, can avoid the fate of cleansing, maintain its own memory, and will not be completely broken down in the mother river. Although it is easy to be destroyed accidentally, it has much greater advantages than ordinary souls. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 682. Garen nodded. But in my heart, I thought of my own time travel from the beginning until now. He himself knew that he was not actually born with a soul of time and space attributes, but was transformed by that weird red substance, and even had a byproduct of innate abilities. Now that Hessas said this, he vaguely suspected that he was probably an experimental product created by a powerful being to simulate the soul of time and space attributes. It may also be a simple product of evolutionary mutation stimulated by a drug, but in any case, it is the result of a pure accident. This is luck and opportunity. As long as he does not encounter external blows that can completely destroy his soul, he can always be reincarnated like a true spirit. Back at the villa, Makayulai, the mute servant, gave him a glass of homemade juice and helped him take off his clothes and hang them up. Garen went directly back to the secret room, habitually checking the grimoires and masks hidden in the secret room, as well as the most troublesome coins. Everything was safe and sound. The 5 masks were stacked on top of each other and pressed against the coin. The force field they emitted tightly wrapped the coin into an oval shape. Just when he was about to close the secret grid, a slight change suddenly caused him to pause. This is, Garen reached out and picked up the top mask. Where there was no markings on the mask, a small mark suddenly appeared. On the lower right corner of the mask, this mark is like a small black dot, clearly visible. It seems to be a symbol and a number. He reached out and touched it gently. There was no unevenness on it, and it didn't look like it was carved or glued on. Looking at the other masks, all the masks have them, and each one is different, but they seem to have a similar structure. When the force field is enhanced to a certain level, more clues may appear, Hessas whispered. It is rumored that if you collect 12 masks, you can get the whereabouts of the original masks. Maybe it is possible. I should be the first person to collect so many masks. It turns out that these masks exist in various large organizations or in the hands of the secret collector. Garen nodded. Sleepless face, it seems there is quite a lot hidden inside, Garen muttered while holding the mask. What stage has your dream practice of Void Stalker reached? Hessas suddenly asked. How? Beyond the stage of being able to freely control actions in dreams is vision, Hessas explained. When you enter the level of vision, you can see many things that you couldn't see before. Maybe it will help you track down the mask. Vision, Garen repeated. Yes, dreams have the nature of disillusionment, but they also have the same function as radios. They can receive many weak and mysterious signals from other dark worlds. Some of these signals are messy and just interference and useless, while others can reflect lots of real reality. Dreams are actually the other side of the human body that is different from the 5 senses. Of course, if you can really grasp the key. Dreams are another sense. This was the first time Garen had heard this statement. You can try to observe every dream you have now. It just so happens that Nadia is temporarily suppressed by the mask and the attack cycle becomes longer. This is a precious buffer time. Putting down his mask, Garen repeatedly thought about Hesaz's words and compared it with his previous dreams. Indeed, dreams are sometimes just the realization of his own desires, and there are also shadows of disillusionment caused by external interference, but there are also reflections of reality and reality. That would be a bit magical. Next, I will use my strength to guide you in the dream. It just so happens that I have been practicing for a while now, and my strength is still sufficient, Hesaz continued. Why did you suddenly become so enthusiastic? Garen suddenly asked. Hesaz did not speak for a long time this time, but remained silent for a long time. If you don't want to say it, forget it, Garen whispered. Nothing to hide, Hesaz smiled. I'm about to disappear. Garen was slightly stunned. After spending so much time together, he had already become accustomed to Hesaz's guidance as both a teacher and a friend. Now he could feel that Hesaz was giving guidance to him purely without any selfish motives. He asked after a moment of silence. Is it because of the killing hand? Yes. Hesaz responded calmly, the demonic killing skill has been abolished, and I am being washed away by the current secret weapon. He smiled bitterly. I depend on the secret martial arts of the killing hand. It's just a memory of killing the Demon King. It cannot exist on its own. Is there a solution? Garen asked in a low voice. He was answered by a long silence. Garen didn't speak anymore, put the mask back into the secret compartment, turned around and left the secret room. Perhaps because of Hesaz's company, he no longer feels lonely. To be honest, he doesn't want Hesaz to disappear. Can practicing killing hand guarantee your existence? Garen asked in a low voice. Are you willing to study concurrently? Hesaz suddenly sounded delighted. It would be very simple if we just keep the first layer, Garen said lightly. Sure enough, playing the tragedy card is the right choice, ha ha ha, Hesaz laughed proudly. It's really troublesome to study concurrently. Let's forget it. Garen said with a dark look on his face. Do not. Just open whatever conditions you want. Think about when I made you suffer, believe me. Hesaz suddenly shouted. The two bickered. Go straight through the corridor and head towards the study. In a dark space. Hesaz floats quietly in the center, his red eyes flickering in light and dark. Only he himself knows that in fact, the moment the killing hand was modified, the last foundation of his existence was completely wiped out, and it is useless to repair it now. He silently looked at his increasingly transparent body, with a wry smile on his lips. Perhaps this silent disappearance is the destination of this memory of mine. You shouldn't expect more in the first place. Maybe one day, when he calls himself and never responds, he will think of me, who is just a memory. Hesaz, have you seen it? This seems to be some kind of counting symbol. Garen was already sitting at the desk and drew the symbol he just saw. Putting aside his thoughts, Hesaz released a trace of black energy from behind Garen and saw the symbols on the table. Some kind of counting indeed. He carefully distinguished the symbols on the white paper. But there are so few clues that it is difficult to obtain meaningful information. Are there any other clues from the man in black? If we collect more things, we may be able to get more clues. Garen frowned. There is another way. Enter the dreamland and learn the skills of vision. You may be able to see the history left on the mask, Hesaz reminded. History? Yes. Many things may still have many traces that cannot be perceived by our normal senses, just like a picture drawn on a piece of paper. We can only see it with our eyes but not hear it with our ears. Only a certain kind of there will definitely not be only one trace that can be detected by the senses. There should be traces that can be detected by the dream senses. Maybe clues can be found through dreams. Hesaz tried to describe it in easy to understand language. How to try? Garen asked. After entering the dreamland, you must first distinguish which ones are illusions and which ones are real reflection and refraction projections. This is the first step. Take your time. Garen carefully recalled the techniques for learning dreams so far. Hesaz's dream skills have really helped him a lot, from being unable to move his body at the beginning, to now he can move freely and can even glimpse higher level skills. Carefully sort out all the technical content. 1. Train to concentrate and gather your attention that is easy to wander in dreams. The method is to find a focus point, such as a certain part of your body. You cannot find it from the environment in the dream, because dreams are of a disillusioning nature. Many places are formed by the vague memory of the human body. Careful observation will lead to fluctuations in the dream. If you do not pay attention to many details in the memory, then once you carefully observe them in the dream, you cannot find them. Observation can lead to distraction and even the destruction of dream transitions. 2. After ensuring that you can completely concentrate your attention, at the same time, use the corner of your eye to quickly scan the dream scene. Don't pause in one place for too long, as this can cause the dream itself to fluctuate. The entire dream is like a rough and inferior fantasy, with flaws and loopholes in many places. Once the loopholes are discovered, it will lead to a sense of distrust and unreality in the entire dream. The entire dream will naturally be completely shattered by the influence of consciousness and transformed into other scenes. 3. After being able to observe the dream, you need to find the entrance or starting point of your dream, and be aware that you are dreaming. It would be better if you could feel the process of entering a dream. This is preparation for the next step. Due to the concentration of attention, an unusually clear consciousness is produced, so this process in turn will be much easier. If this step is taken from the beginning, it will be unsuccessful, because the attention will be easily affected by dreams. What you need to do now is step 4. Hesas guided in a low voice. From this step forward, if you succeed, you will truly enter the core essential knowledge of void stalkers. He explained, we Gyanduo actually regard dreaming as a process of going deep into one's own consciousness and soul. Step by step, we go deeper and explore until we find our most essential true spirit in the deepest part of the soul, and then all of your memories are imprinted on it. They are the tiniest material particles of your soul, particles that are indestructible and indelible. So dreams actually have many layers. In the 4th step, what you have to do is to consolidate your dreams. This is to actively strengthen the first layer of your dream and prepare for the depth later. Vision is a skill that can only be used and trained after reaching the 2nd level of dreamland. I understand what you mean. Dreams are actually the process of one's own consciousness going deep into one's soul. The deeper you go, the more you can discover the hidden essence of the soul. So the level of dreams itself is actually the level of the soul. Garen nodded in understanding. That's it, you have to start from the starting point of the dream, gradually consolidate the details of the entire dream in all directions, strengthen the first layer of the dream, and minimize its disillusionment as much as possible, so that it can be least disturbed by the outside world. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 683. Practicing dreaming skills is a troublesome and long-term task that cannot be accomplished overnight. Galen asked carefully about some details about dream techniques and how to deal with any situation. According to Hesas, mastering the ability of vision will have a big impact on many aspects of him. The expansion of his horizons will expand his visible range and see many things that ordinary people cannot see. Put away the recording symbols in your hands one by one, put all the galleons in the drawer and lock it. Try the first dream today, Hesas suggested. Garen nodded, stood up and walked towards the bedroom. After saying hello to the mute servant, he took a cold shower and got into bed, lying down to relax as much as possible. Lie on your back in bed with gentle, sound-isolating earplugs in your ears. Looking at the black and white checkered ceiling, he slowly closed his eyelids, slowed down his breathing. His consciousness gradually became blurred, and he became sleepy. The key to entering dreamland is that the body must be in the most relaxed and comfortable position, and cannot move or exert force at will. Soon, Garen felt his body feel light, as if he was floating from the bed, and entered a narrow and soft black passage. He was squeezed by a strong force and flew forward. He tried to look around, and saw that there was black mud-like stuff everywhere. He seemed to be wrapped in mud, but he was not stained by this black mud at all. This weird corridor seems to be alive and is still squirming slightly. He vaguely heard many sounds, including human voices, cars, airplanes, or the buzzing of insects. Anyway, many sounds were mixed together. He didn't know how long he had been flying, but Garen suddenly felt a light in front of him, and he immediately flew out of the corridor, and then seemed to enter a small dark room, which seemed to be similar to his bedroom. Black wall covering, black wall lamp, black and white plaid single sofa, black and white plaid bedside table, and a small wine cabinet bar. A huge 92-inch rear projection smart TV is hung on the wall. Garen landed on the floor of the bedroom, turned around, and saw a door slowly closing behind him, and darkness could be vaguely seen through the crack of the door. Click. The door is closed. That is the door in your heart. When it is closed, it means that your dream is closed. This is your psychological defense line and has a certain role in defending against invisible creatures, but don't rely too much on it. Hesaz's voice rang in Garen's ears, but it was like using a voice changer to constantly change the tune of the voice. The voice was sharp for a while, rough for a while, high for a while and low for a while. It was very weird and reminded people of distortion. The long glass tube forms a continuously undulating wavy line tone. This is your bedroom, the bedroom of your dreams. Pay attention to the details here. We will use this as the base point to start this training, Hesaz continued. Garen nodded. He clearly felt that he was dreaming. His body was not as flexible as usual in reality, and his consciousness was slightly blurred and unclear. Everything around him seemed to be blurry, and some were even distorted. First, solidify your dream. Try staring at all the details from the place closest to you, but be careful not to exceed 2 breaths at any time, otherwise the shift of attention will cause you to lose your state of concentration, causing the dream to change, Hesaz whispered. Garen understood. He began to look around carefully, and finally chose a small bookcase next to him. The bookcases are filled with books, from philosophy to history, from geography to popular science, computer art, and everything in between, but they are only representative ones. In fact, Garen has never read these books. He glanced at the black bookcase from left to right, rows of black-covered books sliding past his eyes. Find out the illogical things in your dream, that's interference, get rid of it, Hesaz reminded. Garen understood and continued to look at the bookcase. History of the Earth. Andrew's Roaring Skies looks ahead to the life of Aldress. Books kept passing by. Suddenly the name of a book appeared in his eyes. The book cover of Reinhard placed the apple is very strange. The names on the edge of the book are rippling like water ripples, which is not very clear. Moreover, the words behind place are not clear at all, and they seem to be constantly changing. Changing words. Garen reached out and pulled it out and put it in his hand. The book was not a book at all. Turning it over and placing it on the front turned out to be a mixing plate for mixing eggs. Just kidding, why is the egg tempering plate on the bookshelf? This is completely illogical. Garen directly held the plate with both hands and was about to tear it into pieces. Suddenly, the plate softened and turned into something like a living thing. It escaped from his hand with a sneer, and then disappeared into the wall on the right. A small crack appeared on the wall. Don't worry about it, it's something from an unknown world. Sometimes you'll encounter many beings from other universes and other dimensions in dreams. It's hard for you to catch them. You'll get used to it in the future, Hesaz whispered. Now your task is to eliminate the interfering factors in your dream. Go ahead. Galleon feels a bit magical. His consciousness at this time was slightly blurred compared to reality. This was also true when fighting Nadia. He was easily affected by instinct, and his rationality was suppressed and weakened. Continue to scan the bookcase, there is nothing else inside. Then there is the sofa, which is made of black cloth and looks furry, with patterns like tiger skin. Garen tried to sit on it and pressed lightly. Eee. The sofa made a weird groaning sound, like a living thing. It shouldn't make a sound, Hessas said. Garen nodded in agreement. Then I saw the shadow of the sofa fly out and shoot toward the door. Soon it seeped out from under the door like black water and disappeared. This is also a guest from other universes. These guests are sometimes very useful if you want to travel to other universes and enter other dimensions and time worlds. They will be good leaders, as long as you catch their tails. Can you enter other universes through them? Garen suddenly became interested. Of course, but the premise is that you are willing to live in a dream forever. If you blindly follow a leader and leave your stronghold, you will easily get lost in time, space, and dimensions, unable to find the way back, and then survive there forever, or it is the void of the universe, or the gap between a certain universe, until the soul is exhausted. Why did they enter my dream? Garen began to sit on another sofa. I don't know, these visitors have various purposes, but one thing is certain, they don't have good intentions, Hessas replied in a low voice. Okay, Garen no longer hesitated. After exploring the sofa, he began to touch the rear projection smart TV hanging on the wall. He tried turning on the TV, but there was no movement, and blue arcing sparks danced on the electrical outlet. He reached out and touched the TV display. The TV screen was originally smooth, but now it felt uneven. But apart from this, everything is pretty normal. Garen began to pay attention to the frame of the TV screen. Strangely, the frame was actually a thin yellow snake with a twisting body. It was even alive and spitting out its red core. He glanced at Garen. Laugh. The snake suddenly jumped up and flew out of the frame, heading straight for Garen's face. In an emergency, Garen instinctively stretched out his hand to pinch the snake's 7 inches. Don't touch it. Hessas's voice came hurriedly. But it was too late. Garen's hand tightly squeezed the 7 inches of the snake, and then with a swish sound, he felt that everything around him was blurred, as if there was a flash of white light, and it seemed like he was passing through something at high speed. Everything around me was like sitting on something moving at high speed, constantly passing by and blurry. I don't know how long it took, maybe a long time, maybe just a moment. Then he suddenly saw a huge black vortex in front of him, as deep as a whirlpool in the sea, slowly rotating, and in the center of the whirlpool was a piece of blackness that extended infinitely downward. And he was being pulled by a strong force to fly straight towards the center of the vortex. The vortex occupied his entire field of vision and even made him feel that it was as big as a solar system or even the Milky Way. The overwhelming and majestic shock made him unable to move for a moment. A strange temptation lured him to even take the initiative to rush towards the whirlpool, creating a stronger urge to plunge into the whirlpool. Wake up! Suddenly a sharp voice came from behind him. Garen's mind suddenly shook, and he felt a strong pull from behind, quickly pulling him away from the whirlpool. Call! Garen opened his eyes suddenly, and his body felt sore while lying on the bed. It didn't look like the state after sleeping and resting at all, but more like excessive fatigue caused by excessive exercise. You were almost dragged into a completely unfamiliar universe by a creature from another dimension. Hessas's voice rang from his ears. What will happen if I really enter that vortex? Garen straightened up, wiped his face, and asked in a low voice. Swirl. Did you see a vortex? Hessas didn't seem to know what he saw. I don't know, I should see scenes from other universes and worlds. He paused and continued. Such things will happen often in the future. You have to be careful. In dreams, some things can be very cunning. Don't believe everything they say, and don't really disbelieve it at all. You can only rely on yourself in this regard. Distinguish. It is very dangerous for you to enter other universes and dimensions. Your soul consciousness with the attributes of time and space is the favorite prey of those guests. They will try their best to lure and seduce you into other universes. I feel an inexplicable attraction coming from that vortex. Garen frowned. That's for sure. The process of entering other dimensions itself will have good benefits for your soul consciousness. Experiencing the journey through the universe dimensions in a clear consciousness is not something that can be achieved simply by being strong. It is precious experience and wealth. But it is also a choice with no turning back. Once you enter, you will probably be lost in it forever and never find your way back. What would be the outcome of that? To put it simply, it is what you call a vegetative state. It has no consciousness, but its body is still alive.